Hypocrisy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law-Splaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. How are you doing? I am not sorry for being late, actually, because I was talking to my lady, and I like her sometimes. So, deal with it. Hey, guys. So, how are you? Hopefully, Rumble should be going. Is Rumble going? Let me see. Is Rumble not going? Okay, there it is. There it is. What is it? Stupid. It's this one hair that like does this weird double curve. It's like a shitty compound bow. Anyway, whoo. So hey, good to be back. Good to be back. I had a little trip that was unexpected last week, at the end of last week. I tried to let people know that I wouldn't be streaming Wednesday and Thursday for sure, and probably not on Friday. Ended up being definitely not Friday, as things often go. But yeah, the reason was I was down at Mar-a-Lago in Florida to visit the Trump estate for the premiere of Police State, the new movie by Dinesh D'Souza and Dan Bongino. And I'm going to share my thoughts on the movie in a little bit, but of course, we'll do the like journalism thing. And we'll fully disclose all of the stuff that I got, right? Like all the free shit and all the bribing that took place to make me talk about the movie. And then I'll give you my very unfiltered thoughts. And you know, it's not all glowing, honestly. I have criticisms of the movie, but I think it hits some really good notes. And it's like a lot of these new, I don't want to call them documentaries. They're not quite docudramas. They're like an extended podcast on a subject. And there's a lot of them going around. I mean, Daily Wire, like Sound of Freedom, right? Similar type thing. You get some dramatization, you get some exposition, you get informative stuff. It's a mix of persuasive mediums. And it tells ultimately a story. In this case, it's a story of the growing police state in the U.S. and kind of showing some evidence of it. So we'll get into that for a little bit. I'm not going to dwell on that topic for too long tonight, but I do want to get that kind of down. I want to talk about the experience a little bit. Met some cool people that I'm hoping to have on the show, like Dom Lucre from Lucre. I don't know how to say it, from Twitter. That guy is pretty funny. Got to meet him. Got to meet a couple other guys. I don't know that they want to have. I don't know about like everybody's desire to be publicly associated with things. So I'm not going to name names until I get consent from them or they're on a show or something like that. I did, of course, see Ron Coleman. I'll name him, doxed. And I posted a picture of me and Libs of TikTok, Chaya. I don't know how to say her last name. Chaya. I don't know how to say her name. But she was super nice, very cool. Yeah, Ron Coleman was there, Robert Barnes, Viva Fry. Of course, got to spend a few minutes talking to them. One of my criticisms of the event in general was a lot of it was my fault, but I didn't get as much time like mingling with people as I would like to. There are a bunch of people there, and I kind of found out later that like we might follow each other on Twitter and stuff like that when I would see them tagged and stuff. And so it was like, oh, I kind of would have liked to get to know that person a little bit. But it was still fun. And yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about the movie. That's going to be kind of the opening segment, but not too long. Then we're going to get into Trump taking the stand in New York today because it was just funny. I wish it was recorded, but it's not. So it was transcribed by, some weirdo journalist. But we're going to do that one. We'll read through some of the transcribed testimony because it's funny. So that's good. I got some good news in the mail. Finally, I thought I had more fan mail. I was very, very excited to disappoint the Minnesota Lawyers Professional Responsibility Board again, because that's what they say in everything they have to write. It's so, oh, it's great. They're like, well, of course, Mr. Riqueda's conduct fell short of what we expect from an attorney. And I was like, oh, I feel like you guys are my dad. Like, well, we're just really disappointed in how he did this. But they always have to say there's no discipline. Well, people have been asking me about a couple of these complaints, namely the complaints in my case filed by Monty's lawyer. And then also a long time ago, actually, it's been a year, complaints from people who filed false complaints against me and then got ass mad when I read their names because they thought that they could just go ahead and lie about me to the ethics board to try and get my license taken away or to get me sanctioned in some capacity. But apparently me just saying their names was threats and intimidation, which I've never been threatened or intimidated by my name being said, except by like a parent when I was 5 and they say your full name. Then you know your ass is in trouble at that point. But it was just it was funny because it's like, well, here are all their names. And I think I had talked about releasing their addresses because they gave them to me. I never did, but I talked about it. And apparently that's awful too. And I'm like, wait a minute though. Like, people don't understand. Complaints against lawyers are absolutely privileged. So if you make an ethics complaint about a lawyer and you defame the shit out of him, too bad. There's nothing you can do. You can't sue for a false complaint. You can't do anything retaliatory to them. They just tarnish your reputation. They can post their shit all over the internet too and be like, here's what I said about. Sorry, it's privileged. But then at the same time, I feel like you could say who did this. I mean, they put their name on it. They have to swear under penalty of perjury that it's true, even though when it's obviously not true, they never seem to get that whole perjury charge. But, whatever. But people have been asking me, they're like, well, how'd those turn out? And I was like, what? I guess I won because they stopped talking to me about it forever ago. Well, I finally got letters saying that I won. So that was cool. That was good. So those are officially done now. I thought they were officially done like 4 fucking months ago. Because it's been, well, the latest one was like, I figured that was 4 months ago. Remembering that my lawsuit started in December. I served in December of last year. So that's been going almost a year already too. So all of this stuff happened way early and just now getting resolved. Shows you that lawyers' professional responsibility boards move at the speed of, well, not myocarditis. That's quick. But other things, I guess. Anyway, so I got good news there. But yeah, we'll be talking about Trump taking the stand. And a manifesto is out. A manifesto, I think. I don't know if it is because I'm hearing that it's not official. Not official, which is a weird way of saying not true, just not official. So we're going to talk about that, I guess. Because, you always kind of wonder where some of these mass shooters go. Because if they're a right-wing gun nut, right, who has the Second Amendment tattooed on his nipples, like that guy's going to be on the news forever. His name will be in every household. But if they're the Nashville shooter and they're not a Second Amendment red-blooded American who's like about to talk to you from a Chevy Silverado or whatever, like, I love that look, right? It's the glasses, the big beard, and like the hat that might be on backwards. It's liberals are funny like once every 17,000 years, but someone compiled a list of all like the screenshot of all of those videos. And it just said, when you're about to learn the truth about COVID. And I fucking died because it was so funny. Because that became like the meta for a little bit in conservative worlds, like to do the 3-minute portrait video. You're in your truck, you got your big beard, your American tank top on, your sunglasses. You're like, you know what? I'm just tired of this. I'm about to tell you all the truth. And then they just go through it and it's like, God, it's all of them, only all of the videos. But yeah, so when it's not that person though, sometimes they just disappear. Their names go away. Shootings like, oh yeah, there's shooting every day or whatever. Just not that one. Not that one. And so I figured we'd talk about it, but I don't know if YouTube will let you, which is kind of weird. So we'll have to see how we can resolve that problem, I guess. But hey, that's kind of the show layout for tonight. These things are always weird, man. Coming back after missing several days is always like, it's a little nerve-wracking. You're like, do I even know how to do this? The answer is no. Right? Like you didn't know how to do this before you left, so you certainly aren't going to know now. But it's just a weird feeling to come back and broadcast again. So thanks for being here. I was supposed to be on Camelot's show tonight, but my week and my weekend got really busy, and then a bunch of shit hit the fan, and it's like, well, you know, sometimes it goes. So sorry about you know, I did want to do movie night last night, and I've got a really good suggestion from a friend. I didn't get to do that because last night was complicated. We'll just leave it at that. And sometimes that's where we need to leave things. But anyway, I guess let's get into this fucking Police State premiere, right? Okay. People ask me if I'm going to like show clips or whatever. I don't think that I have permission to show like the movie itself. I don't know how clips work. I'm pretty sure you can watch it on Rumble or Locals or however Dinesh distributes his movies now. I know they did have it in some select theaters. I don't know if it's still there, but Police State is a joint effort between Dinesh D'Souza and Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino, of course, is very high up at Rumble and very involved there. I think he's one of the founders or something. I don't remember. Too many words and names, but you guys may know who Dan Bongino is. If not, he's a guy who talks about stuff. I've never watched his show, but here we probably resonate on some ideas. And you know, he's a big Rumble supporter. I think he's the biggest creator on Rumble as far as watched hours, but I'm not sure. So they got together and they did this movie called Police State, and it focuses heavily around January 6th, but not just January 6th, right? The concept of police state is just that you are being monitored or watched by your government and policed in what you say and do, kind of flying in the face of our notions of freedom and free association, free speech, free expression, all of those sort of values that we hold dear. Now, as a disclaimer and full disclosure, obviously, I was invited to the premiere of this thing, which entails a certain level of, I guess, bias. I don't have any reason to be biased towards this event or towards this movie. But if people want to infer bias from the circumstances, please do so. By invited to the event was held at Mar-a-Lago. I did not buy a ticket, and I technically received I think 3 bourbons, Woodford Reserve bourbons. So not high dollar bourbons. I had 3 of those and had a bag of popcorn because I forgot to grab food. There was food there. My travel and hotel accommodations and were not paid for. Those were all paid for by me. No one gave me any of that. I did not get a swag bag. There's not like stuff that came with this. It's literally an invite to the property to come see the movie. Lady Rackets and I went together. If you want to see a picture of us at the event, it is up on my Instagram page. She looks absolutely lovely. And sometimes I look tall. So there's that. But But yeah, the total compensation was, I guess, the reception at Mar-a-Lago, where there was food and beverages, and then just the ticket to see the movie. But yeah, all of my travel expenses were on me. My hotel, the Uber, all of that stuff was paid for. They didn't pay for any of that. I didn't ask anybody to. No one offered, none of that. So I don't know if anybody else got the same thing, but that's my full disclosure statement. Other than that, I've never talked to Dinesh or Dan Bongino. But both seem like interesting guys. I would love to talk to either of them and interview them. Absolutely. But I've never done so. I did not get the opportunity to meet them at the event. I did not take the opportunity to meet them at the event because they looked kind of swamped, and I don't wait in lines for much of anything. So, like, figure, well, there'll be another chance for me to meet them. I met other people who are very interesting to me as well. One of them I met is a guy who did the music for the movie, and I do want to have him on for a direct examination. I actually talked to him about it because he composes music to make moods. But that's for another day. I met a January 6th defendant whose trial is coming up next summer. Very nice guy. Would love to talk to him too. I met a couple guys who are in the sort of Christian sphere around like Christian influencers, also like just people trying to do good Christian work in their communities. Really, really nice to meet them as well. So that was a lot of fun. The movie itself, let me get out my first and biggest gripe about it. I don't know what the runtime is, but it felt really long. It felt really long to me. Now, maybe it felt long because I'm pretty familiar with the subject matter. It's a subject I care deeply about. I hate police states. I hate surveillance states. I hate the idea that our government monitors what we are consuming, saying, doing, everything. But I know that subject matter, and I know it pretty well. That could have impacted how long the movie seemed, but it seemed too long to me. So we're going to get that right out in the open. That was, by the end of it, I was like, okay. Actually, but well before the end of it, I was sitting there going, all right, I think it's about over. And then they'd start a news segment about someone else. And I was like, okay. I mean, I got it though. Like, I get it. So for me, it was a bit long, but I'm impatient. 90 minutes is the longest movie I want to sit through. How long is this thing? Let me see. I wasn't like watching the time. Police State movie. 2023. Felt like it was 20-23 minutes. Where's the fucking runtime? An hour and 50 minutes. Okay, so 20 minutes too long by default. Just admit it sucked, you coward, but I don't think it sucked. It's just too long. So anyway, the things that I thought the movie did really well is it's really in the dramatizations of an actual police encounter that these people go through. And many of the people in the movie went through these encounters. Right. There were moms that were arrested in front of their kids. Their dads that are arrested in front of their kids. If you notice the common theme, if you have kids, you're going to get arrested in front of your kids. They're going to make your children watch you get arrested. They'll show up before your kids go to school. They will bust your door down and they will arrest you in front of them so that your children know that you are bad. And they nailed those parts, how intense it is, the entire process, the humiliation of it. And I think that is a critical thing for people to see. If I would say that the one thing that I want people to see this movie for, specifically those things, because you can't help get a little bit of that heart palpitation going. You go, okay, when the fuck does this happen to me? When does my door get busted down? When do my kids have to watch me get arrested because I tweeted something about COVID or I tweeted something about an election? That's scary, man. And they nailed that one. That is probably the most powerful portion of the movie. Those are dramatized. They're not actual things. So, there's some fiction going into it, but it's the truth behind what's happening there. And the demeanor contrasting the seriousness of the, action for the people who are getting arrested and persecuted by the state with sort of the jovial mentality of the state. The very, this is a day at work for them, which is a cynical approach, right? A day at work is suppressing the rights of their citizens. And in a way, yeah. Always remember that. Like the people who enforced COVID orders. They locked down their neighbors' businesses. They held people inside their homes. They gave tickets to people. They arrested people for showing up without masks. Kicked people out of churches. Like those are the people who did it. They're just, for them, it's like, well, can't have this happen. There's a rule. Now, not all of them, obviously. Some people resisted, but hey, that's the ropes. And so I thought that was the best part of the movie. There is a lot of exposition and a lot of interviewing. I thought the interviews with the people who had been through it were really good. Great stories. I thought the discussion back and forth between Bongino and Dinesh is kind of the exposition part where they put it together for you. I just don't think that was as necessary. I thought that was a little overdone, in my opinion. Dinesh and Dan are both like very accomplished speakers and creators. So it's not like, they're bad at what they do or anything, but it's just like, no, your movie's selling the story. I don't think you guys need to come in and hammer it home for us dummies. But it is at the end of the day, that's what the movie was. I think it's a solid flick, especially for people who aren't super familiar with what a police state looks like and how close we are to being in one. 2020 and 2021 and 2022 and 2023 have been this very terrifying time for the idea of rights and freedom and liberty. By the way, what's up to Camelot and Camelot Raiders? Welcome, guys. Thank you. Thank you for being here. But it really was scary and still is. Like, you don't know. That one guy is going to prison for making memes telling people that they can text their vote in the election to a number as if it were American Idol. Like, and they're like, well, he deceived people. And you're like, if that's deceptive, I don't want to live in the nation where people are deceived by that. It's obviously fake. But hey, that guy's going to prison. That's kind of like a police state. That's the terrifying aspect of it. And if people aren't familiar with it, it does a good job dramatizing that and putting it forth from people who have really been through it, as well as, like just laying it on the table in front of you. If you know a ton about this and the suppression of rights and all of that stuff, I do think it gets a little long in the tooth. It gets a little boring. And for that aspect, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend me to watch it because I wrote my final paper in law school on the digital surveillance state. I talk about freedom, liberty, First Amendment all the time. I'm familiar enough with what's been happening to the January 6th people, as well as, COVID deniers. I've been censored myself from a couple platforms that had to do with the government's input. So it's like, do I need to spend 2 hours watching a movie about the police state? Well, no, I know about it, but other people who maybe don't, cool. It's certainly a decent watch. Like, it's not bad. It's just, I don't watch much of anything. So that's kind of my very frank and honest review of the movie. Again, the things that it does well, it does really well, hammering home the reality of these arrests and the oppression that you go through. You do not feel innocent. You do not feel loved, and you do not feel like you have rights. And so showing that on screen for some people is a really critically essential thing. And I think we've seen that just in general in the United States with the advent of the police body-worn cameras. As more and more of these body-worn cameras are out there, more and more people are seeing exactly what they're seeing exactly what goes on. And police departments aren't able to lie as much. So that, having anything that brings it home helps get more people on the idea of freedom. Because once you, kind of a central theme of the movie is once you're in a police state, once you lose it, it's gone. And if you think about the police states that are out there, North Korea, China, think about how long it takes to fight back on that stuff. So, but yeah, that's it. That's the movie. Again, a lot of people are probably going to like it more than me because I don't watch anything at all. So some people might be like, "Oh, this is great." Ron Coleman did a review on Twitter. I was sitting next to Ron for the movie. Just a delightful dude, by the way. And I think I'm going to have Ron on sometime soon. I want to talk about these gag orders that Trump keeps getting from a First Amendment perspective, because as a non-practicing lawyer, I keep getting told that my understanding of the First Amendment is wrong for some reason. And so we're going to try and have Ron on maybe to talk about some of this stuff, because it is, as an experienced First Amendment litigator that I've made fun of on several occasions, it's always fun to have another perspective there. Plus, he's just fun to talk to, and he's a delightful man. But he has his review up on Twitter, so you're welcome to check that out if you want another perspective. I don't know what he said. I retweeted it, but it was long. I didn't want to watch it. All right. With that, woo. Oh, hey guys, have you heard? There's no drama happening in the independent comics community right now. Absolutely zero. There is zero drama. So, just want to get that out there. No drama's happening. I'm glad that thing died down, because really, it was talked about to death. So it's over now. It's all done, and it's cool. Occupant 42 says, "A toast, please, sir, to my cat Everest, who I had to put down today. God gave me the companion I need. She would only insist on attention when I was slipping into depression. I thank God for her." Oh, man. Occupant 42, a cheers to you. A toast to your lovely cat, Everest. The thing about pets are a pain in the ass. You have to take care of them. You have to do all this stuff. And it's just really terrible. But then they do that thing, right? They do that pet thing, and they come up to you and they make you feel appreciated for just a second. And cats are assholes 99% of the time, but the 1% they're not is so fulfilling. And they become more than a pet. They become, like you said, a companion, a friend. And losing them is the worst part of owning them. Cheers to you. Cheers to Everest. May your cat rest in peace, and may you rest with good memories. Naptown Nerd says, "You talking about pets or kids here?" I was talking about pets. Kids are never nice to you. What are you talking about? Just kidding. Just kidding. I will not be commenting further on the drama. I just thought it was funny because the drama is still going. And it's like, okay, guys, this is going on so long. So long. It's like metastasizing out into the community. Is great. Whew. With that, let's get into this Trump thing, because I think it's really important. It's really important to see what's going on with Trump all the time in these fucking trials. And I'm not the biggest fan of covering Trump all the time. I'm really not. But he's got all these different trials, and they're all really kind of important. So that matters. That makes it a pain, because you kind of have to cover it. But so I have a news article about his testimony, and then we've got the actual transcription of his testimony. I think it's important to do this too. Oh shit. Hold on. Let's see. I think it's really important to contrast the media coverage with what's actually happening in a courtroom. And this one, since it's not broadcast, we have to kind of just go off of transcriptions. But here we go. Let's start here. So this is in the context of Trump's civil fraud case in New York. So a couple of things need to be said about this case, because I still don't know if people are quite familiar with procedurally kind of the nature of this case. And I know the media isn't, and they never have been, because the media said that Trump didn't get a jury trial in this case because his lawyers forgot to check a box, which was not true in the slightest. You cannot get a jury trial for this case. Also, people are confused because it is the New York Attorney General who's bringing the case, but it's not a criminal case. It's a civil case, which means it is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And you don't have the same rights that you would have in a criminal trial. So the other aspect of this is that the judge is the jury. Like, there isn't a jury. It's a bench trial. Again, Trump didn't have an option there. The media said he did. He did not. The judge eventually came out and cleared that up several weeks later. Thanks, Judge. But he could not have gotten a jury trial in this case. Why does that matter? Okay. Here's the deal. You have a couple types of cases that are out there. You have very fact-specific cases, and you have very legally heavy cases. Now, in some instances, the facts of your case can be very prejudicial, and the facts of the case may line up with angering a jury, where you would want a more analytical legal approach, because while the facts may be ugly or distasteful in some way, the legality could hinge on a distasteful fact that you need someone to look past their biases and look to the law. And juries aren't always great at that. Now, judges only think they're great at that, and judges only say they're great at that. And some judges may make an effort to do that, but that's the idea. So in these cases where you have very, very distasteful facts, like maybe you're a complete asshole, right? You lie about everything. You're a piece of garbage to the people you're around. You're verbally abusive to everybody. Everybody's got a bad story about you, but you still didn't do the thing you're accused of, right? You don't meet the legal definition for it. That's when you'd kind of want a bench trial. You want a jury trial almost every other time. They're just really useful in that way of kind of cutting through the law sometimes and getting to a narrative and telling a story and building a story that people can identify with and go, yeah, that doesn't seem illegal, whether it is or not. And so you kind of get these two competing worlds. The problem is, this is a case that would benefit from a jury trial, as much as it's weird to say that in New York. New York jury trial against Trump doesn't sound great for a jury pool, but it's better than the judge he's pulled. And the judge has no problem taking testimony that you would want to be before a jury. For example, former Trump attorney and admitted perjurer Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen gets to testify against Trump. Now, if you've got a jury trial, first of all, you can object to the testimony based on his fraud, his actual fucking fraud and perjury charges and convictions. But even if you don't get his testimony excluded entirely, you can impeach his credibility with his documented convictions of dishonesty. Wait, you're just a liar at every opportune moment. You lied for Trump. You lied to Trump. Like, you lied on behalf of yourself. You lied later. You lied here. You lied there. You're convicted of lying, aren't you? You're kind of a liar all the time, aren't you? Kind of a lying piece of shit. You liar, you piece of garbage, right? You could do that over and over and over, and you can really hammer them on this stuff, and you could shred their credibility in front of a jury. That's part of what you do. And the jury, you hope, doesn't know this person. Again, these are unique facts because you got Donald Trump. A little bit different than most things. But at the end of the day, in a normal person situation, you want a jury because you want to be able to shred the liars. You want to show the jury that they're lying because you don't want someone like Michael Cohen's testimony, in this case, if you're representing Donald Trump. The judge, however, the judge is immune to such petty concerns as admissibility of evidence because you can't prejudice Donald Trump in the eyes of the honorable and unbiased judge of New York. How could you? He's wearing a robe. He's got a robe on. And so you get this thing where they will listen to testimony that they would not let a jury hear, but they will exclude it in their mind. They'll carve out what they need to know because they are unbiased arbiters who are erudite and astute enough to know how to remove their own preconceptions and prejudices from their analysis. And it's amazing because they all think they can do it. They'll tell you all day why they should not allow evidence in if it was anybody else sitting there. But if it's them, they're like, yeah, but I know that, so it's fine. So, you bet I played an erudite on EverQuest? No, I played a gnome and then I played a human. But anyway, that's the issue Trump is facing here. He's also got an extremely biased judge. Reminder that this judge has already just determined, he just decided already that Trump commit fraud. He just did. Trial hadn't happened. He's like, yep, summary judgment on the fraud. Now we're just doing trial on damages. Got it. Fraud's done. Why? Oh, I don't know. Because they said Mar-a-Lago is $18 million. Or was it 25? I don't remember. But I tell you what, guys, I was just there. That is not a $20 million property. That was not a $20 million property. That's not a $50 million property. There's no way. There's no way to look at that place and look at that number and go, yeah, that makes sense. You can't reconcile it. It's impossible. Because you're driving down this road where every property looks like a $20 million property. I mean, the beachfront that is across the street, like the front yards of these houses, these fucking castles that you're driving past, the front yards are across the road because the front yards go up to the beach. And they'll have like a guest house up there in this beautiful manicured area. It's like, that looks like $1 million property right there. Just the fucking shoreline that they have has got to be $1 million by itself with nothing on it. Then you put this giant house on it. And it's like, there's no way. There's no way. I've seen $20 million houses. Haven't been in them, but I've seen them. And this obviously location and structure easily more. But the judge determined that Trump lied. So he's not biased, right? And Trump has insinuated and outright stated that the judge's clerk is biased. Now, the judge's clerk did run as a Democrat in New York for some position, has also donated thousands and thousands of dollars to Democratic organizations and candidates. But I mean, who's counting? Like, what notion would anyone consider that person to possibly be biased? I mean, that would be crazy to say that that's a political animal that would have motive to be biased against Trump. Like, that's insane. And because Trump said that and said her name, there's a gag order in this case. And I've talked a little bit about the gag order. I think it's entirely unconstitutional. I don't know if they're going to bother fighting it. I don't know that it's ultimately going to matter too much. The judge has already imposed a fine on Trump. It's a prior restriction on speech about a public official. And the judge and these comments are made outside of court. That's the other thing. The gag order covers social media posts and media discussions and interviews where Trump has stated that he believes that this court, this judge, this court staff are biased against him. And the reason Trump says it is, like him or not, and I don't care. If you hate Trump, great. I think he's got a lot of problems. I think he does some good stuff. He's not my superhero or anything. And I don't care if people love him or literally hate his guts. But of course they're biased. It's obvious that they're biased against him. And I want to address one more thing before we get into the testimony today. One of the things the judge said the other day, and this pissed me off, and I have a whole Twitter thread about it, where I argued with a fucking idiot named James Castle. And James, if you happen to see this, my God, dude, you're dumb even for a Canadian. That's bad. But anyway, not the Canadians who watch this show. You guys are obviously smart. Just kidding. But we may go through that thread sometime because it was God, it was pain. It was such pain going through it. But the reason I made the thread in the first place or commented was because the judge said, if you say another thing, I'm going to impose another gag order. It's like, well, that is a gag order. Like saying you can't say anything else or I'll do a gag order is just a gag order. You just haven't made the order. You just threatened it. Okay, cool. Great. It's your last warning or whatever. And it gets to this idea, though, that the clerk is a government employee employed by the judge, judicial officer of the state. You get to criticize them outside of court. Of course you do. It may not be the wisest thing to do. You attract the ire of the judge. But hey, this judge has had ire towards Trump and his team the entire time. So where's the risk? Trump's already been ruled against in what may end up being a completely appealable final order in the case when it ultimately comes down, because the bias is dripping out of that courtroom. It is just dripping. So Trump makes comments about this person, calls them biased. That's the harassment that they've had to endure. Trump says they're biased against me. Partisan hack. Chuck Schumer's girlfriend, I think, maybe. I don't know. Maybe just a little roadhead. I don't know what he ended up saying. But I know he accused her of being like Chuck Schumer's girlfriend or something like that. And that, that pissed the judge off. The judge called it misogynistic or whatever. But the judge the other day is like pounding on the table because Trump's lawyers asked to see the notes passed between the clerk and the judge. The clerk would hand the judge notes during the trial. And the judge says, I have an absolute right to receive advice and counsel from my clerk. Almost. And these are just the little things that judges do and people do when they talk about legal issues where they overstate something where nuance really matters. In the same way of saying, I have an absolute right to kick someone out of my store for any reason. Well, unless that reason is because they're black, right? Like you can't do that if you base it on race. We have a list of rules where you can't do that. Now, maybe you should be able to. I mean, personally, I'm of the free association brand myself. And if you kick black people out of your store, I'd let them come steal from mine. Like, it's fine. But the idea is that you can't actually kick someone out of your store for any reason. You can kick them out of your store for no reason, but not any reason, because there's some reasons that we say are not okay. In the same way, the judge cannot do this. He cannot have absolute access. And we actually have proof of this. There was a judge. I don't know if you guys remember. We covered the story because it was funny. The judge and her court staff were sending emails and messages during cases, and they were extremely inappropriate stuff. I would say, like calling people fat and stuff like that was great, super funny. But judges do not have an absolute right to this stuff because their communications have to be properly levied in the context of what's being said. And at some point, you might get to pierce those communications. And it just annoys me that the judge is like, I have an absolute right. It's like, well, you have an absolute right to receive advice from your clerk, but we don't know if that's what you're doing because you're biased and the clerk is biased. Like, there's no way around it. They obviously are. Does that mean Trump should win? No. Does that mean Trump should lose? No. It just is a fact you have to deal with. You have a biased judge. You have a biased clerk. Trump knows it. His lawyers know it. And they're going to be, I think they're goading this judge to show his hand. And he kind of has. So that said, we got a couple chats and then we'll get into the testimony today because Trump took the stand in his own defense today, which is great because it's Trump talking, which is always a riot. Soren Guardian says, what did you think about the Daily Wire CEO getting butthurt over Crowder scooping the Manifesto? I didn't see that. I like making fun of the Daily Wire people. So I'll have to look for it. RPE Zach says, I just found out my little sister's been diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. Please pray she can win the fight. She has a GoFundMe to help her keep her truck to get to her appointments. Okay, guys, if you want to look at this GoFundMe, I'm going to share it. I'll share it here in all 3 chats. I can't vouch for it, but you guys can check it out if that's a cause you feel like donating to. Please give it some consideration. Carrie says, yet the insurrection at the White House is okay. Jaster 22, welcome to Paralegal. He also says it was 18 million. But that is insane to say Mar-a-Lago's 18 million. 17 acres, something like 58 bedrooms, 38 bathrooms, 17 to 20 tennis courts, and a massive 20,000 square foot ballroom. How's that 18 million? Yeah. I was in that ballroom, and that ballroom looks like it's $18 million, frankly. Frankly, to be honest, terrific. Wonderful ballroom, beautiful, gold filigree everywhere, a little bit gaudy. Okay. Let's do this. Let's do this. So Trump clashes with the judge, defends business record in testimony at New York fraud trial. Testifying under oath in a New York courtroom with the fate of his family's business empire on the line. I mean, I don't know if that's true. Former President Donald Trump lashed out against the judicial forces that put him there. Trump has already been found liable for fraud, a word he lobbed at the judge overseeing the civil trial against him. He said New York Attorney General Letitia James should be ashamed of herself. She should. And again, found liable for fraud was literally because a judge just decided so. Over the course of 4 hours on the stand on Monday, Trump repeatedly strayed from the questions, earning reprimands from New York Judge Arthur Engoron on several occasions. The judge, who was seated just feet away from Trump, will decide the outcome of the bench trial himself. The case stems from a $250 million civil lawsuit filed by James' office. Oh, yeah. I forgot to mention this part. I got sidetracked. About the case. It's a civil case, and it's not brought by any victims, alleged victims of Donald Trump. It is brought by the Attorney General on behalf of the people of New York, and in particular, the banks of New York, who Trump borrowed from and paid back in full. Now, the argument is that Trump's fraudulent statement of his value or of assets values induced banks who have no way to check the value of assets at all, because they've never lent money before, induced the banks to give him more favorable interest rates and terms. Therefore, if he's paying lower interest rates, he's paying less money in profit to the banks. That is literally what this case is about, because none of the banks were not paid. So the case itself is the Attorney General of New York protecting the extra profit of the bank for their civic charity of lending money to Donald Trump so he could make money. Wow, that's really nice of New York to do that. Aren't you glad to know, guys, that if a bank fucks you over, is the state of New York coming to save you? But if you fuck a bank over, in a way that the banks have all of the ability to check and they hold the veto. There's nothing that can make that bank lend anybody money. There's no rule. Well, I shouldn't say anybody. They can't force a bank to lend a white billionaire money. They cannot do it. There's no law that's like, oh, well, banks redline out billionaires. No, of course. Like they can compel banks to loan to black people and low credit score areas. They can do that, but they cannot force a bank to lend money to a billionaire. There's no rule to do it. No bank has to associate with Donald Trump ever. But they all did voluntarily. And they're like, oh, he lied to us. How would we know? It's like, I don't know. Maybe your team of appraisers, maybe your accountants, your actuaries, anybody who does this that you hire and pay millions of dollars to. Okay. I guess like any of them could have helped you see through the apparent fraud. But yeah, so this is a case brought for the extra, 1 to 2 points that banks may have charged Donald Trump. They estimate that to be $250 million worth of value. This whole thing is a fucking sham, obviously. If you haven't figured that out, that this trial is like, whatever you think about Trump, again, this trial, I gotta enlarge myself again, giggity. Whatever you think about Trump is irrelevant here, because the trial is a sham. It's a political hit on Donald Trump. It's obviously a hit on Donald Trump. There's no public interest in making sure the bank made enough money from one person in transactions. Like, that is insane to think of, that the resources of the state are filing on behalf of banks who did not file their own cases. These banks could have brought this case against Trump. I'll tell you why the banks didn't. They didn't think there was any way they could win. Because how could they? How could the bank win this case? They went into the transaction as a skilled, well-versed partner in the transaction, a party to the transaction, a party to the suit. They could have at any time demanded anything, and they always had the power to say no. They could have checked the lies. They could have asked for more information. They could have sent their own people to assess anything, because it could have just said, look, this is a lot of risk for us. We want to send our own guy in there. We want to do a full-on inspection, an invasive inspection of the property to make sure it's structurally sound and all this stuff. There's no apparent defects. They could do all of this, because Trump could just say, look, I'll go to Deutsche Bank. They're Deutsches, but you're douches. I don't like you. Very uncouth. Not good business. You're probably going to fail. I know a thing about failing businesses, and yours is failing. He could do that, and they could do the same thing. They could say, nope, we'll wait for the next billionaire who's buying up property or borrowing on property. Very easy for them to do this. It was all voluntary transactions on terms that were mutually agreed upon, with no force of law empowering either side. It's literally like the most pure type of contractual agreement you can get. Both parties are moneyed. Both parties are savvy. Both parties are represented by competent counsel and competent people all the way down the line. And all of them could argue. But it's mutually beneficial to both parties to do the transaction. So they did it. The banks didn't think they could win. Letitia James thought she could squeak it by, and she may, because of the bias. Matthew Self says, if the property was actually overvalued and Trump would have only been able to borrow a percentage less than the value stated, when the banks had made less due to the interest being charged being on a lesser amount. Possibly. So you're saying, if I understand you, that if he wasn't able to borrow as much, then he wouldn't have borrowed as much. Therefore, it would also be less money that way. Sure. I just don't know if he actually borrowed into the overage values that they're claiming, right? Into the overage values that would constitute fraud. Because that's another thing. We have testimony and we have numerous statements from other land and property moguls in New York who say, of course we lie about the values. Of course you inflate your own values. Everybody does. Trump did it more. He's a badder liar than us. But of course they do, because you don't actually know what you can sell a property for. These properties don't get transacted like a fucking Magic the Gathering card, except when they do, it's a Black Lotus, right? Well, how much are you going to pay for it? Well, that depends on the details, doesn't it? That got real nerdy. Sorry to go full nerd on you, but no, that's the thing. It's like such a rare occurrence for having skyscrapers, walk into a bank and be leveraged as an asset for a loan. And it's like, this isn't a new construction home loan that they're doing 50 of that week. These are big involved processes, and everybody was party to all of it. But Matthew, yeah, it's possible that he could have gotten more money. I don't know that that's actually one of the claims. I know the main thing is they're talking about the favorability of the interest rates themselves, being that Trump was able to get more money at a lower rate than he otherwise would have. Because I guess that's the deal, right? It's the lower interest rate in general. But maybe that has happened too. I don't know. All right, so back to this. Case stems from a $250 million civil lawsuit filed by James's office, which accuses Trump's two oldest sons and Trump Organization and several executives of a years-long fraud scheme. The state alleges the defendants inflated the value of the company's assets and Trump's personal wealth to obtain better terms on loans and insurance. Attorney General is seeking to recoup $250 million and limit the Trump's ability to do business in New York. Punish, punish, punish. The defendants have all denied wrongdoing, and Trump has repeatedly accused James of pursuing him for political reasons. Obviously, she has. In his testimony, former president and current frontrunner of the 2024 Republican presidential nomination stood by the valuations of various Trump properties that other co-defendants have sought to distance themselves from. The numbers of my net worth are substantially more than the number you have in that financial statement, he said in one exchange. Therefore, you have no case. So Trump's testimony, look at that mugshot. Stone face. Oh, Matthew Self says, I just mean the banks made more money because of the value of the property. The AG is pretty much saying, banks, you shouldn't have made all that money. In theory, but again, higher interest rates on the type of money we're talking about does amount to a lot of money really quickly. Here we go. Back to this. Trump arrived at the courthouse shortly before 10 a.m., made brief remarks reiterating his criticism of the trial. It's a terrible, terrible thing. These are political operatives I'm going to be dealing with right now. It's a very sad situation for our country. Outside the courtroom, James predicted Trump would engage in name-calling, taunts, and race baiting. Oh, God, I hope so. I don't know if he engaged in race baiting, but that's funny. God damn it. Why does everybody get to be funny on the internet? Why is that? But he said, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters are the facts and the numbers. And numbers, my friend, don't lie. Okay, so take away anything you think about this case real quick. Your entire premise is that the numbers are a lie. That's literally the theory of your case, is that the numbers lied and Trump got a favorable deal from the numbers lying. Like, how can you be this functionally retarded? How? Okay. All right. Trump then took the stand. Kevin Wallace, a lawyer from the Attorney General's office, kicked off the questioning by asking Trump about a trust he established to manage his assets before he entered the White House. When he left office in 2021, he took control of the trust only to relinquish it again in July. Testified that he did so because of increasing legal pressure from a number of fronts. So these blind trusts, structuring trusts in different ways gives you different flexibility. Structuring trusts in a way where you maintain control over even the existence of the trust and the as a trustee, the direction of it. So if you're grantor and trustee, you have control over the assets in the meanwhile, and you are the grantor. If it's revocable, you can revoke the trust at any time, and the actual beneficiaries of the trust don't have much of a claim on anything. Now, if it's irrevocable, it is more of a permanent distribution to those beneficiaries, even if you remain the grantor and the trustee. The one thing you can't be on a trust is all three things. You cannot be grantor, trustee, and beneficiary in your sole capacity in all three of them, because that's effectively an illusion. You're just giving yourself something and trying to hide it. It doesn't really work that way. But there are various benefits to controlling and not controlling assets, and one of them is shielding assets from civil liability. If you have an irrevocable trust with the beneficiaries being someone other than you, you can be the trustee. You can even manage those assets. You can manage them pretty poorly or very well and get the same result. You can control those assets for a very long time, and they can be shielded from the ability of someone to recover them unless they're able to pierce the trust. But if you wanted to set up, money for your children that can't be taken by creditors, an irrevocable trust, while you maintain control of those trust assets, you have a duty not to waste them, because they're not yours anymore. It's the beneficiary's future interest. But the You have a duty not to waste those assets, but utilizing those assets for the purpose of the trust can be a way to protect them from civil liability. And again, of course, there's ways to pierce all of this, and there's always a back door for a lawyer to shove himself into. But that's the idea. Now, when you run for president, they want you to put your assets in a blind trust, which is a trust managed by someone else, because they don't want you making investment decisions that you have insider information on. They don't force Congress to do this, because Congress gets to do insider trading. That's why. Because Congress wrote themselves that exception. The shit Martha Stewart went to prison for, you would go to prison. Congress doesn't. It's amazing. They're fucking amazing. So here he goes. He testified that he did so because of increasing legal pressure. You and every other Democrat district attorney, attorney general, and U.S. attorney were coming at me from 15 different sides. All Democrats, all haters, Trump said, adding that he had great confidence in his son to manage the assets. Trump repeatedly gave long-winded answers to questions about the valuations of various Trump Organization properties. And Engoron's patience soon wore thin. Christopher Kise, one of Trump's attorneys, encouraged Engoron to allow Trump to give answers in his own way. And I love this. With this witness, it's far more efficient to listen and take it all in, Keyes said, prompting laughter from Wallace. Engoron's voice rose as his anger seemed to boil over, and his microphone struggled to handle the sudden change in volume. No, I'm not here to hear what he has to say, Engoron said, his voice rising. I'm here to hear him answer questions. Sit down. And this is the childish, petulant nature of this judge who's professed his non-biased approach to Trump. This is the shit. This is the shit. Hey, what's up, Jess? You learn to fucking read. This is the shit that they have to deal with. Like, I'm not here to hear what he has to say. No, you are, actually. You are the jury. You're the fact finder. You need to listen to what he has to say. Of course, he means he's not going to listen to his political grandstanding. But that's not quite how it comes out, because he's angry. Why is he angry? He's angry because it's Donald Trump. And he always has been. That's the thing. He is literally an enemy of Donald Trump. It's hard for a lot of people to fathom, because we're not important enough to have an enemy in a bench, like on the bench. But Trump is. And so here we go. Engoron said he was considering drawing negative conclusions from Trump's testimony. This is amazing. We got another speech. I beseech you to control him if you can. If you can't, I will excuse him and draw every negative inference that I can, Engoron said. Now, this is amazing, because if you have a jury, and a witness is being evasive enough, you can ask the judge to admonish them, to answer the questions, etc. The judge can dismiss a witness, and he can instruct the jury that they may draw negative inferences from questions that were not properly answered. The judge can instruct the jury that they may do that. This judge is saying, I will draw every negative inference. I will do this. I will do this. And this is the problem with a bench trial and political motive and animus. How can you fight someone that's openly professing that they can and will do it? And they would certainly, a jury would be permitted to draw every negative inference. They'd be permitted to, though, allowed to. This guy knows what that means. Juries don't. They're normal people, which means you've met them when you go outside and you're like, oh my God, like those are jurors. And so they don't know necessarily what drawing every negative inference is. This judge knows exactly what drawing every negative inference is. is highly prejudicial. It's insane. And those are the type of statements that they'll definitely want for their appeal. After a break, Wallace posed questions about the valuations of Trump and his company's properties, including Mar-a-Lago, Trump Tower in Manhattan, and an upstate New York estate known as Seven Springs. He defended the financial statements listing their supposed value, saying that even those valuations that had been determined to be inflated were too low, and he would not be willing to sell several properties because they were worth so much. Correct. Of course. Of course. Hey, what's up, Rita? James's office says the documents known as statements of financial condition inflated his net worth by billions. Trump said the documents included a disclaimer that absolved him of responsibility for inaccuracies. The disclaimer clause says if there's a mistake, if there's something, don't rely on it. Trump said disclaimers always hold up in court, except maybe this court. The other thing at issue here, and we're going to get to the actual testimony now, because some of it's just funny. The other thing at issue is some of the valuations that they're talking about are beyond the statute of limitations. And there's been rulings from the appeals court on this. And the judge has not really engaged those rulings thoroughly. But some of the stuff he's been asked questions about is from like 2011. It's well before the statute of limitations. And that's going to be an issue. And this stuff is all getting factored in. And the judge is just, quote unquote, unbiasedly doing this. John Wick says judges grow more arrogant with age. I think I tend to agree. Age on the bench, I think. Is this arrogant judge suffering dementia? I have no idea. I want to apologize, do a little apologetic for judges real quick, though. I mean, judges are just human. And when you spend your profession lording over the life and liberty of other people, I mean, you're gonna get used to it. You're going to have an inflated sense of worth about your own opinion. Like, you're going to believe that you are more impactful than you should be, right? This isn't rocket science. It's not high-level psychology. It's very basic human psychology. If your voice carries the force of law, then you will utilize your voice in a way that carries your will to whatever it needs to be. They get used to that. They get way used to it. You can hear it. One of the judges here, before he retired, he had said to a client of mine in a different case, he said, I don't care what the law is. I care what I see. And he made rulings. He just did not give a shit that his rulings went against. Appeal it if you want. But remembering, in a lot of these cases, appeals $25,000 to $50,000 that people don't have to appeal a judge's order. And you may lose. So that's fun. That's how these guys operate, because they're told over and over that they're correct by existing. And this is the big risk when you've got a judge like that. It's why bench trials aren't generally favored, though. Again, very strategic to take a bench trial at the right time, and it can be everything, but it can also be the worst thing to happen to you. And in this case, Trump didn't have a choice. Speaking of not having a choice, this is a show brought to you by a sponsor, and that is fieldofgreens.com. Guys, fieldofgreens.com, promo code KNOWS. Field of Greens is an organic superfood. It's really just dried up like Hillary Clinton, ground up. I don't have a joke for that. Ground up fruits and vegetables. That's all it is. They're powdered. They're put into a container. You put that container into whatever liquid you want. You shake it up. It's got some flavor in it. The flavors are actually pretty good. And you drink it. And it's got just kind of the basic health benefits of having fruits and vegetables in your diet. If you're like me, these days especially, I love to cook, and I've barely been cooking lately because I just don't have time. And when I do have time, I don't have energy to put together full meals. Tonight, my meals that I cooked, it was 2 ribeye steaks. That's it. That's all I cooked. The sides were salt, flake salt to finish it. That was the only side. I didn't like make a bunch of broccoli and asparagus and bullshit. I just made meat, and then I ate meat. It was wonderful. Now, if I weren't out of Field of Greens from drinking all of it, I could supplement that right now with a nice drink of it. That would add a serving of fruit, a serving of vegetables, and just a general health benefits that come from that, but without being gay by eating all these phallic shaped objects. So guys, check it out. Look, without a joke, it is actually pretty good product. It tastes good. It's enjoyable to drink. You don't like look forward to it going, oh God, I got to drink this every day. No, it's just a nice drink that you can throw with you on your way. If you need liquor with it, you can put liquor with it too. Vodka, water, and that stuff is great. Put it in lemonade. Cool. Whatever you want to do. Field of Greens has different flavors for you to try out. Go ahead and do it and enjoy Field of Greens. Thank you, of course, for sponsoring the show. And I can't wait till I get another. I got to get mine refilled. I drank it all, which is too bad because I need fruits and vegetables because the government said so. But thank you for sponsoring the show to them. Guys, we're about to pop over to Rumble to do the rest of this show. I've got a couple chats here. Nomad Vodka says, Nick, I want to put your Jewish nose between my Polak fingers and honk them. Israel belongs to Jesus Christ. Cool. You can do that. Just buy me at a live show. Luca the Vile says, Leighton Furry, Nick. Now that's rude. Kim Bentz, 2 questions. Did you meet Tucker Carlson? No. If so, did he agree to come on the show? I did not meet Tucker Carlson. I didn't see him there. That was the thing. There's so many people there, and I didn't see a lot of them. I did see Roger Stone. He was close by, but I didn't go talk to him because what am I going to talk to him about? AIDS or whatever. Rage LB says, I'm in Tennessee. Local news confirmed Manifesto. Rick Nikita says, loser. He says, hey, dummy, Hawk Boy is dead. Who's Hawk Boy? Ellie Fan says, sup, Nick, you were here by an honorary woman because of how much drama surrounds you. Hope you had a great time with Lady R. Well, it's hard not to have a great time with Lady R. Jasser22 says, I swear you need a degree in rocket science to keep up with all of his charges. The Trump charges, yeah, they're everywhere. They're all over the map. And most of them probably aren't even sustainable. Rael says, Judge, I put a gag order on you, Trump. Too late. I already gagged your wife all night long. It was the biggest, best gagging she's ever had. She's had a couple. She's telling me about them. None that measured up. Jasser also says, your Trump impression is pretty spot on, by the way. He says, this trial is a sham. Sephiris says, did I miss you talking about the manifesto? No, we're going to do that over on Rumble because I have it as a later segment of the show. And we always move over to Rumble after about an hour on YouTube, which is the normal progression of the show and has nothing to do with the manifesto being banned on YouTube. It's just completely incidental. Then I'll be going over to Rumble and getting to that as the third segment of the show a little bit later. And Alex L says, the numbers don't lie. This lawsuit makes as much sense as Steiner math. I don't even know what that is. Oh my gosh. But we are going to pop over to Rumble. Look, the link to the Rumble show is in the description and the pinned comment on YouTube. I, of course, love my YouTube viewers, but come watch the 700 people already watching on Rumble. Come join them and get your ass in the chat and say a whole bunch of offensive stuff. We'll be over there to finish this one out. And then otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow. There will be a show tomorrow. I believe there's a show every day this week. I think unless something weird happens, that should be the plan. So if you do not follow us, Rumble, I bid you adieu and farewell, and we'll see you then. Everybody else, see you in 25 seconds over on Rumble. Rumble.